soon after we finish. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default, so if you have any problems with the audio or prefer to join over the phone, please select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. The webinar will include 3 presentations of 20 minutes each on several South-South and Triangular cooperation topics, including videos and 10-minute Q&A sessions. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to our experts, or just to speak up and raise your hand and send your questions through the chat function. You may send us your question during the presentation, and we will collect them and address them during the Q&A session at the end of each presentation. I would now like to introduce Anita Amorim, our expert for the first session, and who is going to tell us about, give us an introduction of the SSC and the SDGs. She's going to take us through the international program on the elimination of child labor, and she will tell us about fragile to fragile cooperation. Anita?
Thanks so much, Fatima, and welcome to everybody who has joined us. I see you are from several countries in Africa, so we're happy to have you here, some headquarters people as well. Just to give a quick brief, most of you know all these things, but it's always good to be a little bit in the same wavelength when we're talking about South-South cooperation. There are a couple of important landmarks, like, the Nairobi Outcome Document of 2009 that had several interesting definitions. There's a framework of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation on operational guidance on South-South. And for the ILO, we have a 2012 strategy on South-South and triangular cooperation, which was adopted by the governing body. Otherwise, we have also some smaller landmarks, but important as well, like the agenda, like the Africa Casablanca meeting, but it's important for all of you because there will be a discussion of South-South framework next May. That was done by Jürgen Spetman on the basis of consultations with the Africa region, especially for decent work linked South-South cooperation. We also have every year Global South-South Development Expos, which are run by the UN, but we always have an ILO solution forum on different topics. So that's another important one. Otherwise, a big one, of course, is the Agenda 2030 with the SDG 8, which is very important for us, but especially the linkage to SDG 17, which deals with the Partnership for the Goals, which explicitly refers to South-South, North-South, and triangular cooperation. Of course, in terms of the history of South-South, it's started in '55 with Bandung Conference, which was mainly between Africa and Asia. But then we had another very important landmark, which was Buenos Aires in '78, which started the technical cooperation between developing countries. And this modality at the time was called TCDC. And nowadays, of course, this has progressed to use the South-South terminology and triangular. The features are very similar. Maybe the difference in one hand is the aspect of triangular cooperation, because TCDC was only between developing countries, but also a kind of a more political organization as well around G77 in the General Assembly, and also some regional blocs and emerging countries which are gaining more, let's say, somehow more power, more presence in the country. Just to point out that those who have video, you can actually turn off the video. We're not using video. So it's very nice to see you, but we don't need the video because it will slower the presentation. Now, in terms of the Nairobi outcome document, there's some interesting principles like national sovereignty, partnerships among equals, non-conditionality, mutual benefit, mutual transparency and accountability, multi-stakeholder approach. So all these elements are very important for South-South cooperation. We have also an interesting process in South-South cooperation in which we understand for the ILO it's a means of also obtaining the decent work agenda like other means. Finally, the actors involved, we have, of course, the ILO has its unique tripartite structure. So we have our tripartite partners engaging in South-South cooperation, but we also have NGOs, IGOs, cities, local governments. So there's a wide spectrum of actors involved. In terms of the modalities, we can separate it in two categories of modalities. One is like ways or means to achieve South-South, and the other one is really how it happens. So let's say in ways and means, we talk about capacity development, sharing experiences and good practices, creating and strengthening networks and platforms, and building new innovative partnerships. On the modalities per se, you have city-to-city cooperation, regional cooperation, sub-regional cooperation, fragile-to-fragile cooperation, country-to-country, which will be more bilateral, and inter-regional, meaning between regions, like when you have CPLP, with countries of Africa, Asia, Americas, and Europe. So you have also inter-regional pacts. There's also the case of BRICS and in IBSA as well. In a step-by-step approach, the South-South would be, the project cycle would be very much similar to any project cycle you have from a North-South approach, so that would not be different. But because in terms of the rules and regulations of the ILO would be the same. However, you have on one hand a stronger role for the partners, and there's not this division between beneficiary and donor. You have development partners from South helping each other, so we would not do that kind of division, and the project design, implementation, and evaluation should be more, very much more participatory. On the other hand, what would be the role of the ILO? Often we say, okay, but if countries are cooperating among themselves, or unions are cooperating among themselves, or employers are cooperating among themselves, why do we need the ILO if they're already doing that? We would say that the main role of the ILO would be a facilitator, a knowledge manager, and we're going to see some of the knowledge management that we have with Fernando, and also an enabler. But we will not really be on the driver's seat. This driver's seat should really be in the South countries. We also tend to separate some do's and don'ts when we do the South-South, and in terms of the do's, always have inclusive stakeholder consultations, always have a project design that is inclusive, always try to look for partners which are culturally, linguistically sensitive to the realities. And then on the don'ts, very important ones, like we always tend to call development partners donors. This should not be done altogether, because even for the Northern partners, we don't call them donors anymore since the General Assembly and the global partnerships, everybody's development partner. But if you're dealing with South country, calling them donor is a big problem, because it's really not the kind of mentality and the framework that we think. In terms of project design as well, I have already said that, it would be very sad to have a project for South-South designed by North colleagues only. I mean, there would be a little bit of a problem there, and we tend to replicate that very often, surprisingly. And also in terms of knowledge management and implementation, there's this sometimes confusion of what is triangular cooperation and what is trilateral cooperation, so confusion on terminologies. The important thing is that even if you're doing a project supported by the North, South, South, North, the lead is with the South. And then I think one of the don'ts would be not disseminating the information to those that have shared with you, retaining and having issues of transparency. That is another one. And just to end, I think the important thing is when you identify good practices, think about the horizontality, peer-to-peer aspects of South-South, the triangular dimension, if they're innovative and adaptable, because something that can be done in Brazil maybe cannot be done in Senegal, or so on and so forth, so the adaptability, and that would lead also to the sustainability. So with that, I would like to show you a small video by the Director of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation with his new thinking on South-South and decent work. Bear with us a few seconds.
So
Yes, so now I'd like to move to the second topic, which is linked to one of our first kind of initiatives in the South-South cooperation was linked to child labor and forced labor. Most of the projects that we did in the beginning were actually linked to child labor. This was mainly because the initial push for South-South cooperation in ILO came from Brazil. Later on, it expanded to BRICS countries, including South Africa for your region, but also Algeria nowadays is a promoter of South-South. But in the beginning, Brazil was very, in particular, interested in South-South cooperation and child labor. So thanks to this action, linking with child labor, there was a series of projects, mainly with Brazil at the time and other countries, that would show a little bit how this South-South country-to-country or country-to-region would work. There was a 2005 MOU signed that led to a wider partnership in 2009, and that implied in country-to-country cooperation in combating child labor in Bolivia, Ecuador, Paraguay, Haiti, Timor-Leste, Tanzania, from the country-to-country approach, but also in terms of regions and sub-regions, Arab countries in Africa, and also Mercosur countries. So, for example, Mercosur had adopted some child labor-free areas, cooperation between cities and Mercosur, especially in border cities, on combating child labor and forced labor and trafficking. And for PALOP countries, some initiatives like supporting child rights through education, arts, and the media. A lot of cooperation between Angola, Cabo Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique, São Tomé and Príncipe, but also cooperation with Tanzania and Brazil. So little by little, this project started gaining a lot of strength. I think with the compilation that Jürgen Schwettmann prepared and that you will be seeing in Casablanca, you also have a lot of examples of work which go also beyond the ILO in terms of South-South cooperation regionally and sub-regionally in the different groups in Africa. A good example that I like to quote for another region, but can also be, I think, definitely used in Africa, is a regional initiative to combat child labor in the Barracas, because that was a regional initiative. And I know for Africa, I have something similar for West African parliamentarians combating child labor. So this is to show that you can do sub-regional and regional support in terms of combating child labor and forced labor. In the field of forced labor, there's also been some interesting triangular cooperation projects like Brazil, Peru, and the U.S. on combating forced labor. So the good practices of Brazil kind of shared with Peru jointly, and at the same time with some financial support from the U.S. So with that being said, I'd like to show you a little video by Beata Andres, the Director of Fundamentals, on the topic, and then we can go to our third topic and open for questions. Sorry, by mistake, I cut the last minutes of the video, but it's okay. It's not a problem. So this was on the child labor. Basically, the reinforcement of the fact that there should be a global alliance around 8.7, thanks to the SDGs, and this can also benefit from this South-South approach. So these were some final words from Beate. We're very much now working on this also for the fourth global conference that will be happening in Buenos Aires. Now, on the next topic, which is Fragile to Fragile Cooperation. I would just like to share some highlights with you. And the important thing to note is that we are working since 2014 with an MOU with the G7 Plus. And the G7 Plus is a group of over 20 countries that actually decided to self-appoint themselves as fragile countries and to work jointly in something that they call the New Deal. In this new framework, there's a core mission to promote peace building and state building and transition, and there's a special role for the ILO, and especially on post-conflict and prevention of conflict, of course, but also in terms of like climate change and disaster reduction. So there's a series of courses with Turin and a series of activities that have been undertaken in terms of capacity building, but also the interesting point of the MOU that was signed between Elder Da Costa and Guy Ryder in 2014 is the question of promoting the idea of fragile to fragile cooperation, which means that you don't have to wait for a rich country from the north to start cooperating among yourselves. You can already try to find the good practices and make a database of activities and areas in which you are strong at and you can already support, and then request, of course, do some resource mobilization and request some triangular cooperation. So this was done very much with the support of also the EU, sometimes through triangular cooperation, but the initiative of the G7 countries themselves. One example is also the CPLP countries, because Portuguese-speaking countries which are fragile have been cooperating among themselves. It's the case of Timor-Leste, Guinea-Bissau, and São Tomé and Príncipe. They have been supporting themselves in peace building and post-conflict recovery, rehabilitation, and strengthening of institutional capacity. Just to finalize, in this whole dimension of fragile to fragile, the important thing is to understand that it's a kind of a subset of South-South, but focusing on fragility. There's a lot of discussions if you should call countries fragile, in fragility, post-conflict transition. So we are not defining what they should be called. This is the definition of the G7 Plus. But the important thing is that the ILO is supporting countries in state of fragility to help each other through South-South, and then also as a means of resource mobilization through triangular cooperation. So with this, I'm going to show you an extract also of a video from our colleague Federico Negro, that many of you must know by now, that will be speaking exactly on fragile to fragile. Yeah. I think this extract already gives you the flavor of the fragile to fragile. It's also available in the web space that Fernando will give you a demonstration in a few minutes, so you know how to find the whole set. And now I think we can probably open for questions and also some, probably if you can also inspire us by telling us about your experience, but Fatma will guide us on that.
Thank you so much, Anita. So as you said, we're now going to begin to answer questions. I don't see any questions submitted in the chat, but I believe maybe some of our colleagues have some questions they would like to ask. As a reminder, you can still submit questions to the chat. And of course, you can share your experiences with us. Please, if anyone wants to take the floor, I can unmute them and they'll be able to talk to us. Just let me know. We have a question from Samar. So Samar is saying, is there any? Wait. She's wondering if there was any kind of specific good practices of SSTC that can come in mind, ones that were practically successful and irreplicable. So again, she's wondering if there are any kind of specific good practices.
Thank you. Thanks, Samar, for this very good question. I think I wouldn't use the term replicable, even though I know it's in our criteria. I think adaptable is better, because as I was mentioning before, things like, let's say, the Bolsa Familia in Brazil is something that cannot be immediately replicated anywhere, but it can be adapted to a context. So it has been, so I think Senegal has something similar, and there are other countries that have something similar for the African region. So I think there are a couple of concrete examples like that. Otherwise, also social protection schemes that have been used and are shared, like the India Mahatma Gandhi scheme for 100 days of guaranteed employment, with also the scheme that we have in South Africa on community works. These are often shared as adaptable, and I think they haven't also been able to have this. I think otherwise in the field that we'll hear later from Fernando on solidarity economy, there is a series of interesting cooperative movements that we work via micro-op that you can actually adapt in terms of the system to other countries. Would you like to add, Christina, or?
I'll continue with this in the
Okay.
Okay, Samar said thank you. I don't know if we have any questions, maybe from other colleagues, colleagues in Algeria, or Severine, or any questions or remarks or experience to share on the topics Anita just presented. If not, we can move on to the next session. Yes?
Just a quick thing. Do you think apparently we got several messages from people saying that they couldn't connect, but I hope the ones that are connected are hearing well. I don't know if you could get a little confirmation from them, because they're so silent, I feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Hello? Okay. Please, yeah, okay. So they are saying in the chat that they're hearing well, and yeah, from Abuja. Okay, perfect. I think people are hearing us very well, but perfect. Okay, everyone is hearing us. I think we can move on to the next session if we don't have any more questions. Yeah, Christina?
Yes.
So, yeah, I would like to move on with you on the next topic. So I'd like to introduce Cristina Maldonado, and she's going to tell us about green jobs, social protection, and labor migration. Please, Cristina.
Thank you, Fatma, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm Cristina Maldonado, and I'm part of the Emerging and Special Partnerships Unit of PARDEP, which oversees the South-South Cooperation portfolio of the ILO. As Fatma mentioned, I'll be addressing South-South and Triangular Cooperation applied to three topics: green jobs, social protection floors, and labor migration. So as you know, climate change is a fundamental component of the 2030 agenda. It is relevant to all SDGs as it has an impact on economy, migration, health, employment, and other areas. And so addressing this issue should have a holistic approach, taking into account the three pillars of sustainable development, environmental, social, and economic aspects. Some countries from the South have taken important steps towards inclusive green economies, and these experiences are relevant to other countries from the South facing similar environmental, social, economic challenges. These good practices, like the good practices that are subject of South-South and Triangular Cooperation Initiative, can take different forms. It can be incentives for clean production. It can be institutional reforms, the specific activities of projects, or even tripartite coordination mechanisms that for some countries can be very challenging. So in the framework of the ILO South-South and Triangular Cooperation Strategy, several initiatives to promote green jobs have been supported. For example, the exchange of experiences on employment in intensive investment programs, or as Anita mentioned, one of the modalities is to support the regional or inter-regional networks. There is the GAIN, which is the Green Jobs Assessment Institution Network. This is a network of research and policy institutions from over 20 countries. And it promotes South-South joint research to better inform policies and investment on green growth and green economy. And more recently, we are supporting the mainstreaming of South-South cooperation in the framework of PAGE, which is the Partnership for Action in Green Economy. There are 5 UN agencies that are part of this partnership. And they are currently working with 11 countries, and there are other countries that will be joining until 2020. So to finalize, I would like to play a video from Kamal Gouye. He is the expert in from the Green Jobs Program. Well, as Anita mentioned, all the videos that we are playing throughout the webinar will be available in the YouTube channel and also in the meeting point that Fernando will be presenting in a few minutes. So to move on the next topic, which is social protection floors. Social protection are very important, particularly as a strategy to reduce poverty and inequality. Around 40% of the world population do not have access to basic social protection, and so there is an important focus of self-help cooperation in this topic. There are several examples. There is the agreement between China and the ILO, to implement social protection floors in Laos and Cambodia. There was an exchange of experiences to implement these social protection floors based on the specific needs of women and men. So there was an important gender component in this project. Also, in the framework of IPSA, India, Brazil, and South Africa, there was a fruitful exchange of experiences on conditional cash transfer programs and public employment programs, as the ones mentioned by Anita and also by the video that you just saw, which is the Manrega in India, Bolsa Familia in Brazil, and Community Works in Africa. So there are countries that are willing to establish a social protection floor, but they don't know how to start or how to do it. So there are countries that are one step ahead that can guide these countries on the challenges that they can encounter in the implementation process with practical solutions, with initiatives that have proven to be effective in similar challenges. So to continue, I would like to show a video from Valerie Smith from SOCPRO. So to move on with the next topic before we start with the questions, now I'm going to be addressing how South-South cooperation has contributed to labor migration issues. So we have seen so far how South-South cooperation has been useful for social protection, to strengthen social protection floors from one country to another. But in labor migration is not only useful, but is essential. 50% of labor migration takes place between countries from the global south. So this makes extremely important to foster the cooperation between countries of origin and countries from destination to ensure decent work for migrant workers, and this is particularly important in the framework of regional integration processes. So applying South-South cooperation in labor migration leads to a more regulated migration with more appropriate data collection to better inform decision-making to protect labor rights of migrants. This also supports for the harmonization of labor migration law between countries of origin and destination. There are some examples of South-South cooperation in labor migration. For example, in 2014, there was a project for capacity building and exchange of experiences between Mauritania and Senegal. This project had a component of awareness raising of labor migrants to know about their rights and about employability in both countries. There is also an interesting project, South-South cooperation project between Mexico and Guatemala for the protection of labor conditions for labor migrants in Guatemalan migrants in Mexico. This project is to strengthen the registration and recruitment system to exchange information on labor migration and to strengthen monitoring mechanisms. Under the framework of this project, there was also established an observatory of labor migration with the support from the ILO and the participation from both countries. So I think we can move now to the questions, and we'll be also happy to hear from you experiences on South-South cooperation, or what do you think that are the elements that have to be in place to promote South-South cooperation in these three topics, and any other comments or questions are welcome.
Thank you so much, Cristina. I see that maybe some people have questions. I didn't see anything submitted in the chat or sent to me privately, but please let me know if you want to answer Cristina. If you have any questions or thoughts or want to share your experience on those topics, feel free to let me know and I'll unmute you.
I was wondering if I can ask questions, Fatma?
Sure, yes, Esther, please.
It's a little bit of the kind of the same question that I had on the previous webinar. I work mainly on appraisals, and here I feel like I'm in a little bubble sometimes. And I see that many colleagues come from the field, and I always wondering about their experiences actually working with the stakeholders and the constituents. If this modality of South-South and triangular cooperation has been used in the past. So I'm curious to hear from them, and to see what their experience are in terms of South-South. Have they used it before? Are people receptive about it? What are the good practices, or really the challenges and sometimes the failures, because we can learn from those too. So I'm really curious to hear from them, to hear from the people in certain field offices and also perhaps regional offices, if there are any from any colleagues from there as well, to get a feel of what happens really at the field level in terms of South-South. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Yes, please share any thoughts you have and maybe think about it in the meantime. I have one question submitted by our colleague Mandigona. The question is, labor migration is a huge challenge in Southern Africa. The question is there any collaboration that you are aware of to address the challenge?
This question was, is labor migration is a huge challenge for Africa?
In Southern Africa.
Yeah, I'm not. We are not the labor migration experts, so I'm sure it is because it is worldwide. And probably you can answer better than us. But we can answer from a South-South perspective, which would be that because labor migration is such a challenge in Africa as a whole, but also in Southern Africa, it's absolutely a necessity that we have South-South cooperation and bilateral or trilateral agreements in terms of migration, so that labor migrants' rights are respected, but also if there's returning migrants, that their rights are also upon return to their homes also respected. So these questions are very important. Also agreements for skills. We're doing some studies that are impacting importantly the South-South cooperation, which is recognition. So for example, if you have a question, a skill on something, that you can actually work in another country with that skill. So these are also important South-South bilateral agreements that should be done in the region.
And just to add on what Anita said, I think it's very important that the role that the ILO has in this regard as a facilitator. When there is such a challenge, although South-South cooperation has to be driven from the South, but it's important to have a facilitator as the ILO to promote the cooperation between countries and the dialogue between countries, including all the constituents.
Okay, thank you. I have one comment from Severine and one question from Samar. So I'm going to start with the comment. Severine said, the SADC framework would be an example of cooperation for countries in Southern Africa on labor migration is a part of SADC cooperation, South African Development Cooperation. Thank you so much, Severine, for this comment. I have a question from Samar, and it's a question for Christina. And she's asking about the Association of Southeast Asia Nations, Social Protection. She's asking, can you tell us a bit more about it?
Thank you so much for your question. I will pass to Anita because she was directly linked with this initiative.
Thank you, Christina. Yes, indeed. I think this is referring to China ILO jointly funded activity we had in Beijing that is supporting social protection, so for the whole ASEAN countries. And the idea was that ASEAN could share the practices on social protection. So basically, why we're mentioning this here in this forum, mainly with Africa, is that this similar things are happening also in Africa. We had something similar for Francophone countries in Africa run by our colleagues that are dealing with social security for Northern Africa and Francophone countries, hosted in Togo last year. And we hope that this will be, and Algeria now is doing something similar through its support to social protection. So we hope that this will be a trend, that countries of the South now host their good practices sharing with some support of the ILO, of course.
Thank you so much. I don't see any more questions. Maybe I'm asking some participants if they want to participate. Okay, I have a question here. The ILO, I guess SSC, but SCC framework points. Yeah, SSC framework points to the lack of national policies in SST as a challenge for African countries to pursue SSC. Can you tell us if there are specific initiatives to overcome this challenge?
Unfortunately, I couldn't hear the question. Could you repeat?
Yes, of course. So basically, the question is, ILO South-South cooperation framework points to the lack of national policies in SSC as a challenge for African countries to pursue South-South cooperation. Can you tell us if there are specific initiatives to overcome this challenge?
I don't know who asked this question. I imagine maybe it's coming from Ken Shawa. I don't know if it's him who's here, it's Ken. But anyway, because I thought that this was one of the points of the paper by Jürgen Schwetzmann that by now probably all of you have received. We have shared with all of you. I don't know if all of you had the pleasure to open and read it. It's really a well-written paper, so it's a pleasure to read in terms of South-South. It does point out that often there are not structures nationally that facilitates countries to engage in South-South cooperation. This is a fact. However, often we overlook that bilateral cooperation in terms of development is already a form of South-South cooperation. So I think we underestimate what is already happening, and also the regional, sub-regional cooperation, like what was mentioned now by Sevzine in terms of SADC work or ECOWAS or Union du Maghreb. There's definitely things which are going on nationally and sub-regionally, which we are underestimating, but they're actually really important in terms of South-South cooperation. I see a question from Algiers asking about, I don't know if it's from Algiers or from Samar, but asking about the South-South cooperation in Algeria. And I think this is exactly an example that would link up with this comment, previous comment, is that if national countries engage in South-South as part of their national policies, it's much easier later for the ILO to go and support. The Algeria case is a very, very good example because, in fact, apart from South Africa, is the only country in Africa providing funds directly to the ILO as a form of South-South. We have some direct trust funds, we have some funds through IBSA, there are some other funds that come to the ILO one way or the other. But the Algerian example is the only one that comes directly to the ILO as a South-South cooperation. And that is, I think, a good example because it really is supporting a social security school and scholarships for other countries in Africa and Francophone Africa. So it's a very good example that could, with a low cost, quite low cost, could be inspirational for many countries in UMA, in the Maghreb, also Francophone countries in Africa, but all countries in Africa in general. I think all of them could do something like that, provide scholarships for studies. You don't have to be a very rich country, because sometimes we really think that, to do South-South, you have to be very rich or powerful. And in the case of fragile to fragile cooperation proves it's not the case. So I think the Algerian example is definitely a very, very good example recently.
Okay, great. Maybe our colleagues from field offices can share some experience or some challenges they faced and some examples of South-South cooperation.
Yes, hello, this is Yo from Algiers. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Hello.
Hello, I am not directly involved. I'm not the project manager of this South-South cooperation project between Algeria and French-speaking Africa. But I would just like to say, as our colleagues were saying, so this high school for social protection, providing scholarships is indeed a great way to promote South-South cooperation. I just think that a big part of the project is also the exchanging of experience in social protection and social dialogue from Algeria to French-speaking Africa. And I think the role of the ILO here is to assist Algeria to share best practices which can be replicable in other French-speaking countries. As Algeria, as you know, has a lot of own resources. Social protection systems are quite expensive, amount to 25% of GDP. So other French-speaking countries, especially those directly targeted now in this phase of the project, which are Mali and Mauritania, they don't have these kind of resources. So there's a clear role for the ILO to make sure that whatever is shared is replicable. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much. Hi, we have Ken online. Yeah.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you for the presentation that I've made. I think these are important issues. I want to agree with Anita that there are things happening here and there that really are South-South cooperation, that maybe they're happening without a structure, and so they're not captured in some of these important things, and therefore the need for Africa to have structures that actually define and mainstream South-South cooperation, of course, through our decent work programs, but also through other policy frameworks. I know, for example, that Egypt, for example, offers scholarships to most of the African countries. Malawi, we have being a beneficiary year in, year out. I know, again, that there is a lot of collaboration in the military, Kenya, Malawi, East Africa, and most of Southern Africa. All these things do happen, and you have also mentioned, some colleagues have mentioned already about what's happening in North Africa, the social protection processes. These are really important things. The only thing that they lack is the structure, is that these are not structured. They kind of happen in an ad hoc way. And so that is why the Regional Office for Africa, the ILO, with a lot of support from Anita, and of course the UNESCO, we are trying to put up a framework which is going to be validated very soon in May in Casablanca, to just try and facilitate this, see what is on the ground and how can we do better. And I think that cannot be better time than today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks for sharing those great information with us and your thoughts. I think if we don't have any more questions, we can move on to the last session of our webinar with Fernando. And Fernando Batista is our ILO consultant on the topic of the SSTC. He's going to tell us and speak about city-to-city cooperation, local economic development, and social solidarity economy. We'll take your questions afterwards on those topics, and he will perform a small demo of the virtual space, the South-South meeting point, right after your questions. Fernando?
Hello, everybody. I am Fernando Batista, and I work with ILO's Emerging and Special Partnerships Unit. So in this session now, we're going to talk a little bit about South-South and triangular cooperation related to local economic development and also to social and solidarity economy. And besides that, we're also going to talk a little bit about the cooperation between cities or city-to-city cooperation. So basically here, the focus now will be on South-South cooperation among local actors. So such as cities, municipalities, local civil society organizations, academy, and sometimes even cooperatives or social enterprises. So local actors, but always emphasizing the South-South principles such as horizontality, non-conditionality, and reciprocity. And local development in particular is considered a key strategy for localizing the efforts in order to achieve the sustainable development goals. And this is mostly because local actors are the ones who best know the problems and the issues of the regions and communities. So they are the ones that are in the best position to somehow to try to find the solution for those issues. So promoting South-Triangular cooperation among local actors, and particularly among cities, this becomes an important element in the Agenda 2030. Local economic development and social and solidarity economy, they are also very important regarding job generation. Not only the creation of jobs, but decent jobs. And specifically the social and solidarity economy turns out to be a sort of spontaneous generator of decent jobs, because cooperatives and social enterprises and other organizations of the social and solidarity economy, they are not only concerned with economic outputs, but mostly with the well-being of their members and their community. So automatically this becomes, when they generate jobs, it becomes, most of the time, it complies with the criteria of different jobs. The ILO has been organizing many South-South activities in the fields of local economic development and on social and solidarity economy. So some examples are the World Forums of Local Economic Development. So those are huge events that happen every 2 years. So there were previous editions in Spain, in Brazil, in Italy. The next one is going to be in Africa, in Cape Verde. And ILO has participated of those forums and has promoted the participation of participants from the South, and also has organized activities related to South-South cooperation. And also, ILO has been organizing academies on social and solidarity economy for many years now. So 2 editions happened in Africa, one in South Africa and one in Morocco. And in all editions of the Social and Solidarity Economy Academy, South-South and triangular cooperation was one of the main topics. So participants from the South, they participated in the academies, and they had the chance to exchange experiences and to learn from each other. And this with the support of the South-South cooperation program of ILO. So besides that, besides those events, which are mostly face-to-face, we have been also doing a lot of work in terms of using the internet to encourage people from the South to keep in touch and to exchange experiences. So in a while, we're going to see a bit more about this. So just to emphasize a little bit more the relations among South-South cooperation and social and solidarity economy, I'm going to show you now a brief video from Roberto Zinelio, which is a senior specialist on local economic development and social and solidarity economy here at ILO in Geneva. Hello, everybody. Okay, so it's very important emphasize this connection between social and solidarity economy, local economic development, and the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And so South-South cooperation is a very important modality to make this connection. So now we have seen like the most content about this topic, and we can open for questions and answers. And after we go to the second part, which is the virtual space.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you so much. I had already a question while you were presenting, and it's a question from Samar, who is asking if you, Cristina and Anita, could tell us a bit more about projects regarding the community of Portuguese language countries organization in Africa, or SSTC, or city-to-city cooperation.
Thanks, Samar, for this very good question. I think I'll say something and then maybe Fernando can complete, or Cristina. And regarding Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa, I think what's interesting is that we have done lots of work. We have even some publications, actually. I'm sure they will be also shared during the Casablanca meeting. It's not very highlighted in Jürgen's paper. Unfortunately, this was the only thing I complained about the paper, which is almost perfect. But I think it's a very interesting point because the Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa from the beginning started to do a lot of South-South and child labor, social protection, but also now on city-to-city cooperation. There's been some cooperation between Mozambique and Belo Horizonte through the city-to-city, with some support of Barcelona, which makes it then triangular. But also in the front of social and solidarity economy, I'm sure Fernando can share also some interesting developments. There was a initiative after the South Africa SSC to have a Lusophone platform, Portuguese-speaking platform of social solidarity economy. On one hand, it is in the meeting points, which I think he can show. And on the other hand, there was a couple of meetings. There will be one meeting this year on Portuguese-speaking countries in LED and SSC. But also there was one last year with lots of examples for Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa and how but actually they also invited Francophone countries in Africa. So this is expanding to other language regions. So I think it's a good approach as well. Sometimes if it's not like SADC, ECOWAS, or another sub-region, but it can also be language regions, that's very conducive for South-South because in terms of the sharing of materials. So I don't know if you want to say something on the Lusophone network. I think you were there.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think this is a very good example. It was actually in the 2015 Social and Solidarity Economy Academy in South Africa, so had participants from all around Africa, but also many participants from Brazil and also participants from Portugal. So we had a huge group of Portuguese-speaking representatives, and actually they, by themselves, they really liked the idea of South-South cooperation, and they started talking about what they could do in terms of developing activities, South-South cooperation activities in the field of social and solidarity economy. So, and we eventually created a space, a special space where they could keep talking about those initiatives after the academy. And actually this has led to many concrete examples of South-South cooperation. So related to publications, related to an event that was organized in Cape Verde after, and a couple of trips for knowledge exchange. So it was a very interesting example of something that happened in the academy after they participated in the South-South cooperation electives, and they realized that this was an interesting strategy for keep working after the academy.
So just to add to that, also in terms of resilient cities, there's a whole work on disaster reduction and prevention, and there's a huge Portuguese-speaking group, and we also have training courses together with Turin. So many Portuguese-speaking countries from Africa come to this. I encourage also other language regions to do something similar, because I think it's also in the topic of resilience is very important.
Okay, thank you so much. I have two questions here. The first one is, are there any concrete examples of South-South and Triangular cooperation initiatives in West Africa? And I'll let you know the second question after your answer. Thanks.
The most knowledgeable, the most, how can I say, renowned example I can think of in terms of ILO, because if you just say generally, there must be hundreds of things, is West African parliamentarians' action against child labor. They have united in terms of a South-South roadmap and how they will integrate the questions of child labor in the parliament and also lobby for adoption of Conventions 138, 182, and jointly promote the work on combating child labor with a very specific roadmap. So this would be the most specific example that comes to my mind. I think if you widen to beyond the ILO, there'll be many, many other examples.
Also,
sorry, Christina, you were saying something?
Yeah, in the framework of the Partnership for Action on Green Economy page, there are some countries from West Africa that are part of the initiative, and they have participated in several knowledge and experience sharing workshops. Burkina Faso, I think, had a very interesting example on green jobs, and several other countries in the region as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Second question is from Ken, and the question is, which city-to-city cooperation do you regard the best so far, and what characteristics does it have?
I think I'll answer that one, but I'm sure that Fernando can add with some new ideas. I think one very good one and very practical, I'm sorry to give an example again of child labor. Yeah, I said once an IPEC, always an IPEC. But it's work on the tri-border, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and it's mainly dealing with combating child labor and forced labor and trafficking. So the agreement between the three cities and the trilateral agreements between the three cities has allowed that children that have been that are in one side of the border or the other side of the border or have been trafficked to receive support from the institutions that are preventing child labor, from rehabilitation institutions, also police, ministry, Secretariat of Justice at the municipal level. So there's been a very concrete action plan between the three. That I say this is a very good example of city to city. I don't know if you want to add something on, a very good example, Fernando, maybe you can elaborate, I think you know about it, is the cooperation between Brazil and Uruguay and the border cities on the PET recycling. That I don't know if you know this example very well.
Yes, this is an example related to social and solidarity economy, and basically they have created a binational chain of related to the to recycling PET bottles and transforming this in different products. So basically they have local actors which are mostly cooperatives in the south of Brazil and also in Uruguay, and so the cities in which those cooperatives are located, they got together to promote the work of those actors in a by national level. So it was a very interesting example of local actors and cities which are cooperating to create economic production chain, and this is a very important example which generated many jobs. So it's a very good example related to job generation.
And just to add a little bit on that, what's interesting is that it's cooperatives on both sides, so it's both municipalities. So the Brazilians, they pick up the PET. The Brazilian, it's actually mainly cooperatives dealing with waste management. The Uruguayans, they actually do the PET strings with a machine and everything that's done there, and then it goes back to Brazil, and then there's a women's cooperative that does the stitching through a fair stitching, which is called Trama Justa support.
Thank you so much for you both. We have two new participants who just joined. They had some difficulties joining. So maybe they have some question. We just take this opportunity that we are in a Q&A session. Any questions about South-South and triangular cooperation? And now, like, basically our topic now was city-to-city and local development economies. I don't know if Charles or Boca have questions.
I suggest, I don't know if you can hear me, I suggest that we move to the demonstration. I don't want to interfere with your moderation suggestion, but you know, as they have just joined, it will be easier for them to have questions after they see the demonstration from Fernando.
Okay, good point. Let's move on then, and we can start the demo with Fernando of the virtual space.
Okay, thank you very much, Fatma. Now we are going to quickly go over our South-South meeting point, which is our web interactive space. So I'm going to open here our browser and show you how the website works. So here you can see the main screen of the South-South meeting point. And basically this is a website where you're going to find many resources about South-South cooperation, related specifically to ILO's activities. And also there's an interactive space where you can meet other people, you can engage in conversations, you can pretty much carry your South-South cooperation activities through this space. So here what we have is we have three main bars. So the first one is a news bar. So here you can see news about what ILO has been doing or other news related to South-South cooperation, ILO's topics. So, and this bar is also a sort of history of what has been happening. So we started the space in 2013. So since then, we were basically posting here all important news related to ILO's work, so you can somehow to see what has happened in the past years. So you have here news about events, materials, we have a lot of information here. And the middle column is has to do with, it's a sort of library. Here you're going to find documents, everything that ILO has published related to South-South and triangular cooperation is available here. So I'm going to click in this button here, main collection, and now you're going to see here we have many documents and documents in different languages. So in this first page you have the documents in English, but also you have folders for Spanish, for French, Portuguese. So here you're going to find a huge library of documents. And also a very interesting resource is our YouTube channel. So I'm going to open it also. And yeah, here we have a huge collection of videos from ILO experts in different topics, everything related to South-South cooperation. And we have also videos of events, like for example the last South-South Expo in Dubai. So we have many sections of the expo here available in video. So it's a very important pool of resources for you. And in the third column, you're going to have interactive channels. So here, I would strongly encourage you to visit our Facebook group. So this is a forum for. So this is a forum for conversation and knowledge exchange. And here, basically, people who are part of the group who have now more than 400 members, who are basically people who participated in previous events, or so it's a sort of active community of people who is here sharing information and engage in conversations with other people. And so it has been a channel for people who participated in events, for them to be able to keep in touch and to exchange information about what they are doing. And also very important space is related to the South African Cooperation Academy that we organized in Turin last year. So here we're going to see what was the pre-learning of the academy. So basically the participants, they had to go through this pre-learning phase through the internet. So here you have contents about all modules, but most important, you have also the discussion forums used by the participants. So here is a very interesting resource. We're going to be able to access the conversation the participants of the academy they had before they went to Turin. So, and you can also join those discussion forums. They are still open, so you can ask questions, you can post, and you can somehow to contact the participants of the academy. And also another important space here in the South meeting point is the thematic the thematic area. So here we're going to have subspaces for different topics and also some space for events. So and here I would like to emphasize one space that I have created for Casablanca. That's the South-South Cooperation for Decent Work in Africa, the workshop that's going to discuss a framework for South-South Cooperation in Africa. So this space, it can be used by the participants of the workshop, so they can start discussing this, they can start sharing their views and their opinions about the paper even before they meet in Casablanca. So let's hope that this will be used by the participants, and I think it can add a lot of value. And so pretty much this, I went through the most important parts of the South-South meeting point. I just want to highlight the web address. So to visit this page, you just type southsouthpoint.net, and you come for the home page. So now we're going to open for questions and answers again, and we're here available for any further information if you need.
Thank you so much, Fernando, for this demo. Maybe our recently joined participants have some questions, or anyone else, if you have questions or thoughts or experiences you want to share with us and with the other participants, please let me know, and we'll unmute you, and you'll be able to talk to us. Maybe some thoughts on the virtual space, how you used it before. Maybe you can also always, obviously find all the publications online. Any thoughts or any comments maybe from our experts?
Just to encourage you to really enter the spaces that Fernando has shared, because I think he has shared to everybody the links, and we didn't have any comments for the time being. So I'm sure that you can all do it. It really takes a couple of clicks, and once the debate starts, it's very enriching, and our experience has been very positive. So if you go back to that email where Fernando shares the direct space where you can have a little chat and follow up, that would be fantastic. I just see that Samar says the virtual space is something she really likes using. We didn't pay her to say that, we promise.
Okay, thanks, Samar. It looks very user-friendly, actually, so I guess you encourage everyone to go and check it out. And you'll have the link, of course, if you obviously received it before from Fernando, but we'll also resend you all resources and links. If we don't have any more questions, I guess we're good to close for today. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and for attending this webinar. I want also to thank Anita, Cristina, and Fernando for their facilitation presentations today. You will also receive a follow-up email from us within 24-48 hours max with a link to the recording, because as I said in the beginning, we're recording this webinar. You can catch up if you joined in late. You can catch up on the beginning and watch the entire video. All the related documentation are available on the DC platform, and you'll receive the link to this in our email, just as a follow-up. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact us. You'll have the contacts of our 3 experts in the follow-up email. I think we're good to close, so thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Let's be in touch. Yeah, just share the email, the web space.